Hi everybody and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Natalie Parr and I'm a counselor at the Harbor College Transfer Center, and we present to you the University Commitment Workshop, and this is strategies to find your best fit at whatever university you choose for transfer admission. So thank you for joining us, whether you're in person with us or you're on YouTube watching this at a later time or on Instagram TV. Welcome, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So going over the agenda, we're looking at being torn between universities, how to decide on one campus, the program, environment, student life, financial aid, student support, the overall question, what if I still can't choose just one, and then a Q&A at the end. So you'll notice in this workshop, the theme is extremely neutral. I didn't want to pick university colors or campus types of themes because I really didn't want to sway students in a certain direction. It really is all about what campus you feel is best for you. So we'll go ahead and get started. So being torn between universities. This is extremely common and it happens for many of our students. And it occurs when a student gets accepted to more than one campus and is having a hard time choosing which campus to commit to. It can also occur when a student gets waitlisted to their first choice and admitted to a different campus. So this happens pretty much anytime a student has more than one acceptance letter. They kind of have these feelings of, wow, I only applied to such and such campus for fun, just to see if I could get in. Now I really got into this school. So the other one that I just thought I was going to just go to for sure because it seemed like a great idea, now I don't really know which one to go to. And, this is, it's a gift and a curse because now you have to deliberate and make a really big, important decision for yourself. But, this is just to set the tone of this being an extremely normal occurrence and feeling for our students. So how to decide on just one campus is what my students ask me all the time. What should I look for when deciding, right? So I like to look at a few things with my student. Number one being the program or the major that you were accepted to, the location of the campus, the student life with the student population at that campus, financial aid, and student support. I think these topics are really good ideas of where to look in terms of the holistic view of the campus altogether.
Natalie, did your mic turn off?
Yes, give me one moment. Okay. So when we look at program comparison, we want to make sure that whichever university that you pick, that we look at what major option that you have at that campus, and we want to make sure that it is a major and a program that you actually really enjoy and that you will be happy going with at the university. So we're going to look at 3 examples, just, out of commonality that this occurs quite often, right? I'll have students that, let's say they get into UCI for psychological science, Cal State Long Beach for psychology, and Dominguez Hills for psychology. So that's what we'll use for this example. So as you can see, we're going to look at the catalog. This is how we kind of get a better idea of what the program is going to look like. So in this example, I'm pulling up the UCI Psychological Science major catalog. We're going to pull up the Cal State Long Beach Psychology major. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LAHC Transfer Center, if you don't already. And then lastly, we're going to pull up Dominguez for psychology. So these 3 are really common. And I like to just cross-reference the catalogs to see what a student thinks looks best for them, right? So we'll look at Cal State Long Beach together and it'll show. All I do is just Google search, right? Cal State Long Beach psychology, or excuse me, Cal State Long Beach catalog. I search the catalog psychology and it'll give me the psychology BA degree. And then when we look at the actual classes for the degree, like this, you will see that it shows all the classes that you need to get that bachelor's degree. So it'll include, for example, some classes in sensation and perception, human cognition, psychology of learning, psychology of emotion, right? So it'll go take 3 units from courses in category A, B, or no, three 9-unit, 300 level courses in category A, B, and one class at least from category A and one from category B. So you have to choose at least 9 units between these two sections, right? So if these classes already start looking interesting to you, they really fascinate you, you can click on them to look at a course description, right? And this just looks like a great degree. We know that this is a really good option for you just looking at the degree, right? Autism spectrum disorders, that's a great one for an individual who wants to really learn a lot more about this context and how it relates to psychology, right? Or an individual who wants to look at different cultural elements in psychology, right? So they have a lot of different resources within this program, as you can see, of just giving a very holistic view of psychology and different people. Now, when we look at the UCI Psychological Science program, Psychology Fundamentals, right? Upper division, lifespan, developmental psychology, abnormal health psychology. They ask for developmental psychology. Choose one course from 3 different groups, right? Okay, so they have these options. Choose an additional upper division course. So as you can see, this one, they have a lot of preclinical, health-oriented, developmental, right? Kind of similar to Long Beach, but at the same time, quite different too. They don't necessarily go too much into specific details about, for example, Long Beach was really specific about having like a class on psychology of happiness, right? Autism spectrum disorders, psychology of women. UCI was a little bit more broad, right? And it could be for a number of reasons, but this is how they have the program organized. When we look at Dominguez Hills, we'll just scroll down here. You will see that you have to take, in the upper division requirements, right? History and systems of psychology. An example would be an intermediate stats class or upper division stats, right? On top of the stats that you already took at Harbor. Advanced research methods in psychology. Seminar, right? So you will see that they have an option in personality and social psychology, learning and evolutionary psychology, cognitive psychology, biological psychology, and so on, right? So as you can see, when it comes to the catalogs, I like to help my students just take a look at them and see what option looks the most appealing in terms of this degree, right? Because at the end of the day, you're transferring to this university not just to take classes, but to get that bachelor's degree. So in my opinion, you should look at this list of classes and feel so excited, so ready to sign up for them and learn all the material in these classes. That should really spark something in you of like, wow, this is exciting. I cannot wait to learn this material. So that's a good indication when you see like one campus that really stands out to you, that could be a really good option for you. Okay, and then I'm just going to go into the next section. Give me one moment. So the next segment that I just want to go over is student life for our students. Now, student life is really important because not only are you transferring to a university to get a wonderful education, but you're also developing as a person. And you definitely want to go to a campus that has the things to offer you that just, provide that wonderful atmosphere as a student. So that includes clubs and organizations. A lot of my students, they love to be involved in a lot of different clubs. They want to make their own. They want to see that the university has, different clubs for them already available that they would be interested in seeing themselves join. Another thing that my students, sometimes they care about, sometimes they don't. It really just depends on the student, is Greek life. A lot of my students, they have that interest in sororities for girls, fraternities for boys, but they have that really vibrant social element, and it can be great for networking. It can be just an enriching part of your education that you only get to do when you're in college, right? So if you want to go Greek, then we definitely want to look at campuses and see, do they have Greek life? Do they have, let's say you have friends at Kappa, Kappa Gamma at a university like UCLA, and you want to go to USC and be a Kappa too. Do they have that at this school? Things like that. So you want to definitely take the time to look into Greek life, for example, to see if it's available, if that's something that you really care about or you've always wanted to do. And then campus events is another one that comes up a lot for my students. So I don't think it's always common to see, especially given the environment that we've been in right now, that the universities, some of them really do go all out to provide really nice events and programs for our students. So, for example, USC does a really great job every year of having Spring Fest and Conquest. So, Conquest in the fall is a huge fair for students, and they have a concert. They had 2 Chainz perform there before, Diplo, Big Sean, right? Like they have a lot of different artists perform. Um, and it's free for the students. They don't charge the students anything. They get to have like, food trucks, and I think they gave us little gift cards for that too. Um, Campuses like Dominguez had a spring fling one year. 2 Chainz performed on that one. They had Power 106 there. And then other campuses, they may not have anything like that. So for some students, they're like, no, if I'm going to go to a university, I want to be able to, especially when things start reopening, a lot of students are going to want to go to those campuses that are going to be having different opportunities to have just these fun events for students to just enjoy and celebrate, being in college and having the opportunity to go to a free concert, to go to these fairs for free. And they're just, so enjoyable. So those are other things that I tell my students to start researching. The next thing that's very important for my students, I know for so many of my students, would be financial aid. So you want to look at your financial aid package and you want to weigh out the pros and cons. Now, if you already completed your application for FAFSA or your DREAM Act application, you want to make sure that you try to take a look and start going through your portal and navigating if they give you any information on how much your cost of attendance is going to be, because it differs for every single student. What that means is all the information and data related to your income, your household income, it's going to be translated from FAFSA or DREAM Act into a financial package that the university will put together for you, specifically the university's financial aid office. And it'll tell you, okay, we're going to give you this much in grants, this much in scholarships. You're approved to have this much in student loans if you want to take it out. Now, for some of my students, they'll say, oh my gosh, I got the UC Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, so all my tuition and fees are waived. Wonderful. And then at Cal State, they don't really have anything like the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. So let's say you don't have that complete tuition and fees paid for. It's going to be something that you have more expenses for. The student might say, okay, the UCs are willing to give me more money to go to school. I'll take that into consideration because I want to minimize my debt. Now, for some of my students, they will spare no expense in their education, and that is okay too. It really depends on the student. If they can justify the cost, especially for the quality of education that they're receiving, then it's also understandable why they might feel like, you know what, that's not the most important thing to me. But for some students, it is. That's why we bring it up in this workshop. And then, of course, there is student support. Now, student support is extremely important because when you transfer to a university, it is going to be the first time for most of my students that they've ever been taking classes in a university setting. Now, you've been a college student this entire time, right? You've been taking classes at Harbor College, getting A's, most of you, and just doing so well, getting these excellent degrees and working so hard. And you know what it's like to succeed in college. When you transfer to a university, though, I think there's a lot of culture shock that can occur. There's a lot of, it's just a different setting. It's extremely large class sizes compared to community college class sizes. I think sometimes there's like the loss of personal connection, with instructors, for example, because it's just a much bigger setting. Right? And then, of course, there's the whole thing about seeing other students who've already been there for a year or two. Maybe they seem more like they are adjusted and you're still going through that adjustment phase. So that's why you want to make sure that the campus that you choose, you want to see that they're already making an effort to make you feel welcome to the campus. They're already telling you, okay, sign up for orientation, right? Which is important. All the campuses are doing that. But if you see like even the university going above and beyond, doing extra, Dominguez, like they're really doing a lot of welcoming the students in through Transfer to Success. I know UCLA, CCCP, they're doing a lot to help our students feel comfortable. And they haven't even admitted students yet. Like they're still waiting to give students their decision, I think by Friday. But they really do try to do a lot to help the students feel welcome while they're currently studying at Harbor College, and once they transfer, even more so. So you want to make sure, do you see that they're already trying to make personal contact with you and get started with getting to know you as a student? You'll see more too around the time of, I would say, like June, July-ish. And then, of course, the Career Center. Do they have a Career Center that looks appealing, like they support students and they make a lot of wonderful programs and events? I think a Career Center is a really important element in a university for me personally, because that was my biggest concern when I was a college student was, would I be able to find a good job after I graduate? Am I gonna, be one of those students that has a hard time? Because sometimes students do have a hard time after they graduate of, finding a job. So I think that's why it's a really good idea to see, take a look. What does this Career Center have to offer? Do they have a lot of events for students and workshops? Do they have companies come and do interviews with students for jobs? Do they do different types of mock interviews and helping students learn how to dress for the career fair, how to prepare for the career fair, right? Do they have a career fair? How many employers do they have come to the career fair? These are all important things that maybe you might not realize now because it's just a different time period in your education as a student at Harbor. But once you transfer, I think the career element of your education is kind of going to be put more in front of you because you're getting closer to graduating with that bachelor's degree. So definitely take a look at what the Career Center has to offer at each university. And I think that's a good way to see, they do a lot to support students with careers. The other thing is you want to make sure that the campus has a lot of good holistic support for the student. So what does that mean? That means looking at the entire student, not just the grades, but do they have tutoring to help the student? Do they have mental health services, right? Because you want to make sure that the campus that you're trusting to educate you, that they're also there for you when you need them. So that's why I recommend, check, do they have therapy for students? Do they have, basic needs center to help students if they're encountering loss of home or shelter, food insecurity, right? So those are things that I also think are really important for a student because we just never know when we might need a little extra support. So that's something that I like to help my students look at too. And then what happens if a student still can't choose just one campus? This happens a lot. This happened to me when I was a student too, so I know it happens to a lot of my students. Sometimes it happens where a student hasn't heard back from scholarships and they have to say yes to at least one campus, but they don't know what's going to happen with the other school. So sometimes my students do submit their intent to register with more than one campus. It's definitely necessary if you need more time to make a choice, and it can be costly to submit intent to enroll and pay the fee to more than one campus. That's why I don't recommend it for all my students, only if it's absolutely necessary. So I'll give you an example. USC normally starts admitting students, I would say like the second week of May until probably the last week of May, right? So the last day to submit your intent to register for Cal States is May 1st for a lot of the Cal States. So that can be stressful for a student because then they're thinking, oh no, I haven't even heard back from USC yet. And there's a 3-week gap between the last day to submit your intent to enroll with the Cal State and when I'll be hearing back from USC. What do I do? So for some students, they'll go ahead and pay the extra. So they'll pay, let's say, me for example, I paid for Dominguez. I submitted my intent to enroll with them while I waited to hear back from USC because I didn't want to lose a spot at Dominguez Hills if it didn't work out with USC. So that is why I try to tell my students it's not really for everybody because then you're going to pay a lot of money. Dominguez, I believe it was $125 plus $99, so $224 for orientation and intent to enroll. Dominguez or USC at the time, I think I had to pay on top of that like an extra $200 for orientation. It was really expensive. So that's why I tell my students don't do it unless you absolutely have to. Sometimes my students will get a wait list to one campus and a yes from another. That's when I tell them, okay, if you really want to go to that campus that waitlisted you, you're probably not going to hear back until about the summertime. So if you want to say yes to another campus that did accept you while you wait to hear back about the wait list, you can do that. It's just going to cost a lot of money because once you submit that intent to register and you pay the money, they won't give you your money back. Now, for my students who have an estimated family contribution on their financial aid of 0, a lot of the universities are kind enough to waive the intent to enroll cost. So for you, it probably won't be a loss of money as long as they don't charge you, right? Cal State Northridge is also really nice, and they let the student submit their intent to enroll, and there's no fee associated at all whatsoever. So that was really kind of Northridge to do, and that could be an economical way of navigating this whole thing if you really would want to go to Northridge. But yes, this does happen sometimes. Now, when it comes to the UCs, their website, it does indicate that you cannot transfer your SIR from one campus to the other. I'm actually going to be going to a conference with the UCs next week to clarify if that means that students cannot submit their intent to enroll with more than one UC, because that's what it sounds like to me, but I still want to make sure. But I recommend for my students to try to submit your intent to enroll with just one UC. If you get waitlisted to one UC and admitted to another, you are able to submit your intent to enroll with one UC while you wait to hear back from the other, but you'll just have to pay twice. So you'll be paying, instead of just $250 for one campus, you'll be paying $500 for both, but you'll only be going to one school. So that's why it's a very sensitive topic. We don't want to just tell all students to do the same thing, because at the end of the day, everyone has to make the best choice for themselves. So I hope that at the end of this workshop, you feel like you have a little bit more of an idea of how to navigate, what things to look for in a campus to help you make a great decision for yourself. But I am confident that you will make the best choice for yourself in your education, especially when you're honest with yourself about what is most important to you in your education. Thank you so much for joining us for this workshop. If you're watching on YouTube or Instagram, I'm going to end this recording so that way our students live can ask their questions, and please join me for an appointment if you have questions too.